Money should be your biggest friend because it's the strongest force to help you get to where you want to go. That conversation went for 2 hours. At that time, I was like, you know what? That's it. You only need to be right once or twice. If you're right once or twice, your life can change forever. It's exactly those extremely fearful moments that I came across that made me who I am today.
Hi, Wealth Builders. Today we have a very special guest, Cindy Shen. Cindy and I went to the same middle school in Wuhan, China, 25 years ago. She then moved to Canada with her parents. She later graduated from Ivy School of Western University in Ontario, Canada, and worked at IBM for 5 years. In 2017, she quit her corporate job and became a full-time entrepreneur. Today, she's CEO and president of a portfolio of real estate and private lending companies. She's also an unmarried single mom by choice. So let's welcome Cindy. Like always, I'd like to start with knowing a little bit about my guests' childhood stories. So if you don't mind, can you share your first memory of money?
So my family moved to Vancouver from China, mainland, when I was like 14, 15-ish. At the time, I didn't know anybody at school. I did not feel I fitted in at all. So the worst time was lunch break. I didn't want to go to cafeteria. I had lunch from home and I didn't know where to eat because I have nobody to sit beside me. So I was like, oh my goodness, like lunch break was like the hardest time for me. So at the time, all I wanted is I want to buy a car so I can actually eat lunch in my car.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was, I remember so vividly because now I look back, what I wanted at the time wasn't a car. What I wanted at the time was freedom. I wanted the ability to do what I want and what I didn't want to do when I didn't want to do it. When I heard, many other people say like money is an evil thing, money isn't good, or don't talk about money, I was shocked. I'm like, money should be your biggest friend because it's the strongest force to help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have misconception of money, and a lot of it's related to their childhood experience or their what they learned from their parents about money. So that's interesting story. Thank you for sharing it. What did you learn from your parents about money?
Oh my goodness. I learned so much. It's exactly because they didn't know anything about money, and they didn't do anything with money. Not only they didn't understand how money worked in China, they they became even more lost in this new country, right? So I remember very, very vividly, that's the first time in their life they have to learn, oh my goodness, I have to earn money to pay rent. Oh my goodness, everything costs money. Oh my goodness, I have a budget. Oh my goodness, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. They have to catch up on that lesson. So the big thing for me, I learned, again, it's very early on. I learned, wow, money is very important. It allows you to be fed, to have a roof over your head, and it allows you to pursue whatever you want to, give you a large degree of freedom. If you don't have that, you're going to struggle how my parents and how my family struggled when I was little. So, you have to worry about rent and everything. Yeah.
Is it correct to say that it was a struggle to make ends meet when you were growing up?
Not in China, but definitely here.
Everything changed when your family moved to Canada.
Exactly. There's no, big benefits. There's no pension. There's no very high paying cushion jobs and very respectable jobs they could get right away. Nothing like that. They have to start all over again from scratch.
Wow. So did it get better over time?
I was laughing because my family got better not because the time, sort of because time passed, not because of them, but because I grew up.
Okay.
So yeah, all my friends are from pretty well-off families. They all owned companies, they all own manufacturing places, they all own different entities in Asia. So I've seen, wow, okay, it's very doable. Money is something that is, first of all, it's realistic to achieve. Secondly, it's very doable. thirdly, it's a whole mysterious world for me, right? Because all the adults, like their parents, are talking about like really cool stuff, I think, at the time. So I was very curious about money. I really have no bad connotation about money. And to me, it's like such a good thing. I just want to explore. I want to understand how it works. I really want to understand how it worked. And I guess, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to study money. For me, like, I'm pretty passionate about arts, but I know as, seeing how artists such as that survive in the firsthand, I'm like, I'm not going to pursue that as a career for sure when I start out.
Wow.
I want to do something that's most important to me first, and then I'll pursue all my hobbies after that. And that's exactly how I did, magically. I mean, I'm still very far from my goal, but I'm not bad at this point. So I've accomplished what I kind of wanted to with a strong foundation. I still have many, many years to go, many goals to hit, but I mean, that's in the future.
That's exciting. So can you tell me a little bit about the transition from IBM corporate job to starting your own business?
What I learned the most in my job is when I started with IBM, I had a certain vision and I tested out for a few years. What I really learned is what I didn't like. What I didn't like is I have to get up on time. I really, really hated that. I do not want to get up early. Like that was a big no-no for me.
Okay.
Number two is I really, really don't want to do a bunch of work which didn't make sense. I think it didn't have a real impact. Quite often, I feel my work was just lost in the whole grand scheme of things due to internal reorg, due to different things that clients just, I wasn't making a real impact. So, and thirdly, like I didn't like to be on a plane every week and just get stuck in the airport for most of the time. I really didn't like that either. It's like I live out of suitcase. So I learned that, and then like, okay, my next move would be good if I can eliminate all that. Meaning, I need to find something that's very close to home. I don't have to fly anymore. I can walk to work, so I have free time. Where then I can figure out what I want to do next. And hopefully I didn't have to get up early. I can make a real impact, things like that. So I ended up being headhunted to a bank with 8-minute walking distance from here, from where I live. So I was like, okay, I solved that I solved the getting up early problem because I didn't have to make for the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. So that's good. I felt at the time that I could make an impact, and that turned out to be not so true. So that's still a big no for me. What really made me say that's it was there was a meeting, and I think our department and some other departments, and it was a 2-hour discussion about the color green. There's a button on the screen that's green. What shade of green would that be? Is it dark? Is it light? Is it not so dark and not so light? That conversation went for 2 hours. At that time, I was like, you know what? That's it. I really wasn't really doing anything with my life, and I need to move on. That's when it just hit me. I'm like, I can't do this. So at that time, it's very clear to me what kind of lifestyle or what kind of work I want. I want something I'm really passionate about. And I'm really good at, so I can create a value and people can pay me so I can actually feed myself. Right?
Absolutely.
So to me, the decision is I want to do something in finance. I want to do something I'm passionate about, and I want to do something that allows me the freedom that I want over my time, my location, and also the people that I do want to deal with or I don't want to deal with. I can pick and choose who I work with. That's very important to me. So yeah. So once you have that framework, then I was like testing out a bunch of things really crazy. Like I failed so many times. And I just stumbled upon lending, and that turned out to be the breakthrough in the beginning.
That's
So
interesting. So let's pause. Let's take it slow a little bit.
yeah,
How long was the testing phase, and what are the
okay,
things you tried?
okay. I had a hunch that I want to be an entrepreneur even back in university.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually tested a bunch of things when even like from the time I was in university until I was almost like I would say like 10 years afterwards.
Hmm.
So all this time,
Okay.
throughout all this time, I was testing, like I had different product ideas, like I was doing like university consulting, I was doing like just a bunch of different small things, which none of them worked. Like
Okay.
none of them worked. It's just like, wow, like how come other people have so easy and I can have any breakthrough, right? That went on for about, yeah,
Like 10 years.
like 10 years. Just keep trying part-time on the side, just like side jobs, like, or side
Side hustles.
experiments.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Exactly. Yeah. Just side hustles. Just keep trying, keep trying. Failed. Nothing works until, I hit lending as a product.
Mm-mm.
And that taught me a very valuable lesson. It doesn't matter how many times you're right. It really doesn't matter. You only need to be right once or twice. If you're right once or twice, your life can change forever. If you're right more than 2 times, I think you're at a whole different level than most people.
For sure.
So the key thing is you have to love risk. You have to be comfortable with failures. That has to be your routine life.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I'm going to try 10 things, and if like, 8 things doesn't work out, I'm doomed. No, you have to keep trying until you found that one thing. Like
Yes.
that's also something I learned. You don't need a lot of opportunities. Like don't have FOMO. You really don't need a lot of opportunities. Like I had many opportunities which I give it my all, and I got what I wanted at the time. And turns out what I wanted turns out to be so bad in the long run.
Hmm.
Like it was a curse, not a blessing, and
Can
I didn't
you
see it.
can you give me an example?
Like for example, many people were saying you can't do it yourself. You have to have partners, whatever. I've lost equivalent to 7 figures because I had partners,
Hmm.
and it's not
Wow.
just once; it's multiple times. And at the time, like you think you're doing what everybody's telling you to do, like that must be the right formula.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it doesn't work for you. It just does not work for you. That was not your thing.
Okay.
And at the time you look at such good opportunity, 10 years, you fast forward 10 years, it was a disaster. You wish you'd never done it. So I learned many lessons from it. Number one is you don't need many opportunities. You just need one or two, and you can have a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is you gotta try everything that you want to try.
Yep.
Like, don't leave anything out. Don't leave anything on the table. Try everything and just enjoy failing. If you think like everybody else that failure is such a bad thing, you will never get to it. Like
Mm-hmm.
you will never break through. Failure and mistakes and risk should be part of your normal life. You need to learn and train yourself how to increase your tolerance for it. That's the deciding factor how far you will go in the future.
Yeah, I love that
And
you
still,
mentioned even if you make mistakes, that you are learning from it. It's not just about, okay, I didn't like it, move on. But instead, you learn something that, okay, here are the things that I won't repeat and waste my time again in the future, right?
Exactly. If I did not learn that I hate this, I hate getting up early, I hate not having freedom, I hate dealing with people I really don't like to deal with. If I didn't go through that and learn how intensely I hate it, I wouldn't be able to create what my life is like today. Like failure is always at that point in time, it may look like a failure, but 100% time, 100%, if you can learn something from it and turn it around and apply it to your future, when you look back, it's not failure anymore. I have had 2 or 3 very major setbacks in my life, and I have to I had to drag myself and crawl out of that hole and it typically took me about 3 to 5 years to completely heal from that. And now I look back, those 2 times were because I got myself out of that. Those were the biggest changing moment in my life. Like I was so thankful for what I went through, because after going through it, it's like, oh my goodness, my life was at a different level after that. Do not fear fear. It's human nature. You're gonna have so much fear when you are in this kind of situation. When I look back, every single time I had a major setbacks, I had so much fear, and I was like, I was the most anxious person you could ever meet. But if you confront it head on, if you collected all the right information, you went through all the right steps in the process and made all the decisions based on that, you could change your life afterwards. And you're like, wow, every time I actually conquered fear. And it's exactly those extremely fearful moments that I came across that made me who I am today. And truly, I was at a different level than the previous me before.
Yeah.
So I learned how to embrace fear, risk, and failures. Like these are normal stuff that you just deal with, just like drinking water or eat your food. Just you need to train yourself to be very, very comfortable dealing with it.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Like, I think most people probably don't even tackle one of them for their entire life.
It's very counterintuitive. It's very much extremely against human nature. But if you want to be at a different level, that's the lesson you have to learn sooner or later.
So,
and it has big price. You just have to pay for it.
So let me pick one, because in financial planning, confidence comes on top of a deciding factor that if you are going to be successful down the road or not. So when you were talking about fear, I kind of have the sense that at the beginning, when you have fear, it kind of was overwhelming and you rely on rationale to have the guidance going forward. But over time, when you go through it so many times, your confidence starts to build, and now you have, you are confident enough to face fear. Is that how it went?
My very first private deals, because at the time I didn't have any clients. It's just my entire saving, of like 100K at the time. And that's just one deal, the very first deal. I've never done a deal before. I remember when I was on the way to the bank, and even at the bank to do the bank draft to get the money out. My legs were shaking, like literally, physically was shaking. I was like, dude, I underwrote this deal. I knew the LTV was low enough. The house, I know is worth, let's say, $1 million. I know the first mortgage was like $500,000. I know he wants to borrow 100K. It's only 600K. The LTV is only 60%. You can't be safer than that. Like, I just keep telling myself these facts. And also, it's also that deal, It's also that first deal of mine. It did go into default because the borrower did miss payments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when that happened, that was already like a year into what I did, and I already had like, close to like 100 deals.
Okay.
But I never dealt with default at the time. I was shaking so much. I was like, oh my God, like, what should I do? Like, I know what I should do because there's a legal process for it. Yeah. I just never went through it. So I couldn't handle pressure. I was like, oh my goodness. So I was calling like everybody like that I know in the industry that deal with this like crazy. I probably talked to like 10, 20 people. They're like, stop shaking. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, LTV 60%. The house value even went up. Like, you're guaranteed you're not going to lose money. Like, what are you shaking about?
Yeah.
Anyway. So And of course, things went as logically as I predicted. So it was such a low risk. There's so much equity in there. The board got the money somewhere else because he couldn't afford losing 400K equity. So of course, I got paid out with a whack penalty that was paid to me, things like that. So that was a really good product, and that was a really good example. But because I didn't go through any of that, every time I was shaking. Even today, because we test new products almost every year with our own money, and I fail every year. Failure is a part of my life.
So it's interesting that you mentioned a lot about risk and about failures. So as an owner of business, also like you invest money for your clients, how do you manage the risk?
So when I talk about embracing fear and embracing risks and embracing failures, I don't mean to do it blindly. You have to do your homework before you decide whether that's a risk you want to take. So I have to develop, a system to deal with it. That's why I'm doing the product that I do today, which is lending and real estate. So for example, lending wise, like it's really easy. It's common sense. How much is the asset worth? You can get very good, precise, and accurate valuation, different ways. Now it's very easy for me to evaluate as well, if you do enough times. And how much debt does a person have? As long as you control it at a certain level, think about it. Really, is a person gonna lose $500,000 just to defund our debt? Right? Like
probably not.
Like right. If you just control the underlying asset really well, and the loan to value, like the debt level really well, you can go travel around the world, which is what I did, and don't have to worry about a thing. And things are gonna flow as how they're designed to flow.
So interestingly, you were saying you were basically aiming for things that generates 10% return, and then you minimize the risk or control the risk the best you can. So do you ever get tempted for the things with higher return?
Yes, we were tempted, but only with our own money, because we want to keep finding products that can generate sustainable double-digit returns. And so far, after all these years, it's still lending and real estate that hit the benchmark. Everything else we tried, private equity, SPAC, you name it, options, derivatives, you name it. We tried everything, and no, money lost.
So basically what you're saying is that you found the sweet spot in...
Exactly. And I love to work with people who have the similar philosophy, meaning they're not really after the absolute highest return. They're looking for a more balanced asset. It's around 10% return, like 9, 10, 11, whatever, and they can sleep at night.
Have you ever felt like it's difficult to be a woman entrepreneur specifically?
I never looked at it from the way that, female may face this, but males may not. Like, I never look at that way, I guess.
Okay, so very quick question that's very to the point is, how did you manage through your maternity leave? Because you have a kid and you also have a team. You have clients, right?
Very good question. So this is the beauty of building something that can give me financial freedom, time freedom, and location freedom. When I decided to have the kids, and from the process to starting until, I have to deliver everything, and also like, before she turned 12 months or so, I honestly didn't have too much struggle because I'm not split with my time. I'm home. Like, my team didn't see me for a whole year. Like, for more than 300 days, they didn't see me.
Wow.
And I'm just home, like, with my baby. But to be honest, I can deal with my work a lot longer than I can deal with my baby.
It's very hard at the beginning. I agree.
Yeah. I can only play with her maybe 2 hour max, but I can play at my work for like more than 10 hours a day. Anyways, so I actually didn't find too much trouble. And I guess because I didn't have to be somewhere, on set times. I didn't have to get up early to go to work. I didn't have to, like, all I do is, if they really have something that they cannot solve themselves, they call me. And typically that doesn't happen a lot. But if I had the baby a few years before, I think I'll be like very much juggling with it. That's why I chose to do it later on.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So basically, when you're setting up a business, the first 2 to 3 years is probably very chaotic because you're trying things, you're establishing relationships and all that. But then it gets better, and then you can move on to
Let
new
me
things.
tell you. Let me tell you what I had to go through. And I still have to go through parts of it today. No clients, no capital. I can, no deals. I didn't even know how to underwrite. I have to. Worse is nobody wants to work for you because you cannot compete with big corporations. Everyone wants to work for big corporations, the banks or whoever. Nobody wants to work for a no name company at all because it's very likely that the company will go belly up next month and you won't even get a paycheck. Like that's what like literally I had the biggest problem with staffing and hiring. Biggest problem ever.
Wow.
I also had to go through when I was in China. One of my employee actually took all the client data and ran with the competitor. So I just flew over here overnight. Yeah, exactly. That happened too. Like any worst thing that you can ever imagine happened. So I'm learned how to. I have trained my brain to always think of the worst case scenario and find out backup plans, and then go from there. Like I never think of the more optimistic scenario because that never happened to me.
So can I follow up on that one? Like, can you quickly explain like what happened later following that?
I think because the company was so small, like he could make money elsewhere because I believe he was already talking with a competitor back then. So they just decided he's gonna do that. He literally just took all the client data, went with some competitors, set up a company, and they're still running today. So that's something that I have to go through.
So did you just let it go?
Sorry?
So did you just let it happen and you didn't like sue them or anything? Like
legal, that's completely like all the legal lawyer stuff that's being said and done.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that that's part of the fun doing things on your own, right?
Yep.
So at the time, like the remaining people were, the people who were with me from the beginning, and they were crying, they were bawling their eyes out because they didn't know what to do. So I had to flew back, meet with all the clients, meet with all the deal channels. And then I established a mechanism with my team in Toronto because I still had to head back to China because that one we were already hitting Series A funding. Oh, by the way, that was a failed venture too. So everything was pretty much like the failure rate is really high. But anyways, so every morning when I woke up in China, my remaining team would call me, and oftentimes they were crying because they didn't know what to do. And I have to go, and I went through everything with them, tell them, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you should do tomorrow, this is who you talk to, this is how you talk to them, this is what message you should send, and this is what you should look for. Okay. And luckily, even though they were crying so much, they still would take my instruction and go with it. And then I would hang up the phone and I would cry by myself because it was just so much pressure because the company could go belly up and I knew that the challenge can be overcome. I had confidence in those people that they will stick with me, but I also knew if the worst happens, the company could go belly up. So I had so much pressure, and the China thing wasn't going so well. So so it was like in the morning I deal with the Canadian side, then I go to deal with the Chinese side. So much problem there, and then I come back at night. I regroup with the Canadian side, and they were crying, and I was like, it's okay, I know how to do this, and I told them what to do. And then after hand phone, I cry, and that's just cycle that went on for 2 years, about 2 years, yeah.
2 years, wow.
Yes, it's a magical. It was so funny when I came back. My team's like, wow, it's magical that we're still here.
Yes, I would say so too.
It was such an adventure. Yeah.
Wow. That just says a lot about your leadership and the loyalty of your employees to you. Like
I'm not sure
even
about leadership. I'm a very straight shooter. It is what it is. Let's analyze the facts. Okay, here are the options. What do you want to do? And okay, we decide on this. Let's go do it.
Mhm.
I just wouldn't give up because I really know the underlying asset and I know the underlying logic
Yeah,
for how to operate the assets. I know we can make money from it.
yeah, yeah.
We've done it, and we will continue repeatedly do it.
So would you consider yourself financially free?
Let me put it this way. Um, I generate all my living expense through passive income.
Mm-hmm.
So if I if I like I don't have to work in order for income to come in. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about how much money I have. It's about passive income. I've I have built a system I can make around 10% passive income so I can cover all my living expense.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the definition of financial freedom, yes, I'm financially free.
So what about higher level, like to do the things that you desire and dream of doing?
Oh, that's already included in my budget.
Okay.
So, but I have higher goals. So those things needs bigger checks. So that's why I still do the project that I love because they generate on top of my living expense. Yes.
What are your next goals?
Okay. So we are considered private equity.
Mm-hmm.
So in our industry, it's about asset under management.
Okay.
So we have deployed like close to 80 million. So next goal is we want to hit the 100 million mark. We want to hit the 500 million mark. Eventually, many years down the road, my plan is to hand it over to the next generation managers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope they hit the 1 billion mark. I don't know. I have
Wow.
confidence if my strategy is followed, they can hit the 1 billion mark. How long does it take? For some other people, maybe it take 10 years. For me, my style, very laid back and conservative, it may take us like 80 years. I don't know, but the goal is there. And I want to
So
do it at the right pace.
when you're thinking next generation of managers, would you consider your kid like that person or external?
I think everyone owes it to themselves to do what they're passionate about,
Yeah.
to pursue their dreams, not their
Mm-hmm.
parents' dream, not what's already in front of them. They should pursue what they are passionate about and what they're good at. If my kid is passionate about this and happens to be good at it, great, she can try. If my kid is not passionate about it or not great at it, no.
Okay.
Like, I'd rather give it to somebody else to manage who has a superb learning ability, has
Mm-hmm.
very high ethical standard, and can do the right thing, do it slowly but steady. I benefited so much from figuring out what I love,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what I'm passionate about, and figuring out what I'm good at, and then build a life around it.
Yeah.
And if my kid cannot do that, I think I would feel very bad about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think her job is to figure out who she is, find something she's passionate about, and keeps doing it so that she's super good at it. She can do it better than anyone else, and then make a living out of it, and maybe make an empire out of it. I don't know, right? That's her job. That's her
Yeah.
job. If I want to take my company to a certain level, that's my job,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the next generation of managers' job. So.
I like it. I really like it. So what would you what would you teach your kid about money and investing?
This is what I would teach her about money, investing, and everything about life as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Number one is I said it many times, like find something you're passionate about. Find something you truly want. How do you know this is something you're passionate about? If you are faced with a decision, with something, mm-hmm. and you know very well you may fail, and you're okay with failing it in the end, and you're okay with everybody telling you this is such a stupid idea, don't do it, you shouldn't do it, everything said and done, and you're going to fail in the end, you still decide to do it, that's your calling. That's what you're going to be so passionate about. That's number one. Really find out who you are, what you're good at, what you're passionate about. Number two is practice practice the how out of what you want to do. So you can do it well than anybody else. Same thing with money. If you're passionate about money, learn how to manage it. Learn what money can bring you, how you can lose money, how you can win money, what different types of money there are, which type fits you, which type you want to have. Like for me, passive income is my thing. I don't go after anything else. I go after passive income. What is your money, right? Figure out who you are and what money you're after. And then learn, fail, try, just have that grit, have that perseverance, just to be very comfortable with risk, very comfortable with failures. Keep trying until you find that thing. Once you find that thing, that's your own opportunity. Forget about all the billions of opportunities out there. Like you're going to be faced with many opportunities, but you only need a few opportunities in your lifetime to really become who you are. And you only need to be right once or twice to really build the life you want. So find your race, stay in your lane, and run your race on your own time. That's true with money. That's true with life. That's true with anything you do. If you want to do anything and you go through with that process, it's very hard that you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. So one thing I figured from listening to you is that you want your kid to take full responsibility of her life, of her finances.
Yes.
And learn from her own mistakes.
Yes. If she wants anything, she should fight for it. If she's not fighting for it, nobody's fighting for it. And that also means she doesn't want it that bad.
Okay.
Right?
I like it. So here's another question. How would you plan for your estate? Are you going to leave anything to your parents or your kid or other organizations?
Yeah, so I actually have that done. So I'm leaving enough to cover the basic living expense for my parents and for my kids. I'm gonna set up a charity which has a certain mandate. So my operating company will keep operating the same criteria they're operating today. And with extra residual, will fund the charity, which has a specific mandate. So essentially my vision is I always want my operating company to make more than they spend. So there's always surplus.
Yeah.
And the surplus will be distributed for charity purposes, which will also be sustainable charity, which they'll make more than they spend. You know what I mean?
Interesting. I like that. Yes. Are you talking about like social entrepreneurship or
social entrepreneurship or real estate for artists?
I see.
Like something that it's like Nobel Prize. It's been giving out money for so many years, but because it's invested so well, like they always make more than they spend. So you can be sustained for a very long time. That's my model. Like just even charity, you have to be able to sustain yourself.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all your lessons and failures and everything. You have wonderful stories. Thank you so much. I hope Cindy's story inspired you to achieve financial freedom and live the life you want. If you want more stories and strategies to live the life you want, please don't forget to subscribe to Invest with Prudence. We upload new podcast episodes every other week. We're also available on YouTube under Invest with Prudence. Stay tuned and talk to you next time.